All right. Thank you so much, everybody. Happy day. And thank you so much for joining us for maximizing community college marketing budgets. So before we dive in, just a couple of quick housekeeping notes. This session is being recorded and you will receive the email, uh, receive the link via email by the end of the week. So please keep an eye out for that. We definitely encourage questions during the session. So please use the Zoom chat or Q&A. Best way for us to see it and respond. And don't feel like you have to wait until the end. If a question pops up, we'll try to get that answered during the session. Otherwise, we will save some time at the end as well. If you run into any issues, please reach out to our team at conferences@carnegiehighered.com, or you can message us in Whova under Ask Organizers Anything. And if you are sharing on social, please feel free to tag at Carnegie HQ. We'd love to see what you're learning and your takeaways from today. And now I'm so excited to introduce my colleague, Christy Phillips, who is presenting today's session. So Christy, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Katie. And good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are located. I'm out here on the West Coast, so it's still morning for me. So thank you all for joining me for today's conversation about maximizing budgets, smart strategies, specifically for community and technical colleges. I can't think of no time like now to really be diving into this topic as we're getting ahead of budget planning for the upcoming fiscal year, fall term, summer, fall starts. But quick introduction of who I am. My name is Christy Phillips. I am the Senior Director of Community College Solutions here at Claris, a Carnegie company. And so I have the privilege of working with community and technical colleges across a variety of different strategies and solutions impacting enrollment and marketing across the nation regarding driving enrollment and access and equity for adult learners, some college no credential populations, and then high school students as well. So students of all types and varieties. And so I do come from the campus side. I've sat both in the admissions and the marketing space in leadership roles. So I really like to say building consensus across both teams. And I did my doctoral research at Washington State University, really focusing on the some college no credential population and the business of prior learning. But that's enough about me. So let's dive into what we're going to chat about today. And so I really structured this session to walk through the most effective strategies for community colleges, maximizing budget. I know there's a lot of different pressures to make do with having more tasks at hand and sometimes smaller or dwindling budget. So starting by understanding some higher ed trends in landscape, and then really diving into some cost-effective tactics and recommendations for hyper-targeted strategies, leveraging local SEO, and then really how to tap into Google Analytics 4 and using analytics to really measure and optimize campaigns. So let's go ahead and get started with some key industry insights. I say it must be still the researcher in me. I really love to tap into some stats and facts to really curate the conversation and also use that to help you inform what's going on in the landscape. And so I really always like to start with this slide, really talking about enrollment projections through 2029. More importantly, because what we all know for community and technical colleges is that you are serving your specific service area, specific communities. You don't have sometimes the luxury to jump out into secondary or tertiary markets. You really need to be optimizing and maximizing within your given service area and region. And so really painting the picture here too, specifically to show what is happening across the four-year landscape, because this directly impacts how different four-year institutions are encroaching into your different territories and service areas. And so as you can see, elite institutions, there really is no impact into their enrollment projections. They have and continue to remain stable. And so what that really means is a lot of those mid-sized regional, the public institutions are starting to think of nimble ways to really attract different types of learners. I'm sure you have seen different students being attracted to, distance and continuing education from possibly some of the state institutions in your state. thinking about those different tactics and how they are now thinking of recruitment efforts is really in tune for community and technical colleges, because now you really need to start thinking about that increased competition, specifically from those regional institutions that are nearby as well. So I always like to, as I said, kind of paint this as the landscape to really shape how we need to be efficient with our different tactics and strategies to really dive into the matter at hand of helping change students' lives for the better. One of the other recent stats that I really like to highlight is that it really truly does take about 2 to almost 3 times more media spend to engage an audience if there is dull, unengaging content that is being delivered. What I like to do with this stat is really tailor it specifically to needing to serve the right message. Instead of just a general apply now, let's reframe some of our targeting strategies to be really in tune to different lifestyle variables, different interests, different hobbies, to really curate different programs, certificates, learning opportunities that might be of more interest to those students. Being able to really deliver a message that's going to speak to them based off of where they're at in their life stage, maybe wanting to turn a job into a career, is going to really help warm and engage them and ultimately take less media dollars, because there's a higher propensity for them to really be engaged versus just a, standard apply now message throughout your service area. And then last but not least, I really always like to reaffirm that attracting a new student takes about 5 to 25 times more dollars than retaining an existing one. So think about where there are dips in students returning year over year, but then also look at those different stop out students, somebody who started at your college and something impacted them from persisting. So life got in the way one way or another. We like to say sometimes the sweet spot of re-engaging a stop-out population is roughly about 2 to 3 years. That seems to be when, life has settled back down, what impacted them in that moment of time to stop attending college at your campus is really a good time to then get a message in front of them and deliver an ad that is saying, we want you back, welcome back to campus, giving them that unique message that really is in tune to welcoming them back on campus. And so with that, let's dive into how we can take some of those stats across the different landscape and industry trends to really tailor it specifically to hyper-targeting strategies. And so in this section, what we're going to really talk about is shifting from that broad brush approach to really diving into some audience-centric targeting. So defining what that means and looks like, addressing what types of key audiences we should really be looking at, and digital ad platforms to really focus on too, especially if you do have a smaller budget that you are working with. And so as we start talking about what is hyper-targeted marketing, this truly is precision targeting using data, geofencing, and audience segmentation to connect with prospective students efficiently. Sometimes I think that a lot of people might misunderstand that hyper-targeting is also being too broad and too narrow in reaching students. But I like to challenge that a little bit by saying that it's allowing us to deliver a concerted message to a unique niche audience. It doesn't mean that we're limiting reaching audiences, but by being more intentional at different levels across your student populations, you have the higher likelihood to really drive conversion. And so it's really just retooling our different approaches and thoughts. And so this really does matter for community and technical colleges because it allows you to maximize a limited budget. You're not just putting out there an apply now message throughout all of the different households in your service area, but you're being really intentional and focused of knowing different types of demographic, lifestyle, social variables to really be able to deliver a message that is going to be very unique at the household level. So an example could be, if you are targeting and using a geofencing campaign to get directly into the home within your service area, you might be delivering a start now, a continuation of, dual enrollment message to parents and a high school student in one house on the block, and then maybe 3 or 4 houses down, you're delivering a very intentional message about veteran support and using VA benefits, because based off of the information we know in that household, that a veterans message would really resonate better. So it really allows you to be intentional, and it reduces that wasted ad spend, knowing that every dollar counts. And then overall, it really does improve that overall engagement, because again, you're hitting with a specific message that is tailored to reaching that audience within that different household, or different ways that you are targeting and engaging across different platforms. One of the other ways that I really like to challenge and retool the way that we're thinking specifically about building different audiences and using different types of creative and ad messaging is really bridging the education to career gap. So being able to use those career pathways to play a critical role in helping students gain the credentials, whether it's a micro credential, a certificate, a non-credit bearing, for example, in the workforce programs on your campus, or maybe it's a transfer pathway to a college or university to complete their bachelor's degree. But by using these step-by-step paths from education to employment can really help demonstrate and paint that picture of a clear return on investment. By using this to help inform that creative, you're also helping reduce the barriers and the concerns they have of, the competing, I've got a family at home to support, I've got different priorities, I've got work as well. How am I going to balance this all? By being able to use the career outcomes and helping them turn a job into a career, or making a pivot and a shift, being able to tailor at that level really does help bridge that education to career gap. And it also helps you be a little bit more intentional too with that message you're putting out there, instead of a apply now or register today. So being able to demonstrate also the ways that students can earn to learn, if you do have some of those ways for them to take that prior work experience and map it into a certificate or a program, or talk and highlight about if there is industry certs attached to some of your micro credentials. Be able to elevate that, because just because you know that on campus, they may not necessarily know that as well. So sometimes those best kept secrets that can also be a challenge and a detriment to helping bridge that career to education gap as well. And then what I really want to dive into is, I feel that sometimes when we have a limited budget, we're then thinking, okay, well, I need to just focus on branding and awareness, getting the name of the college out within the service area and using my budget in that space. But I would also like to say, let's drill a little bit deeper and kind of really focus in that reach and engage phase. You really want to think about what strategies are going to drive conversions to really help be able to move the needle, whether that is with registration, submitting an application, helping think of different ways throughout the process to get that student ultimately to register and be on campus for the upcoming term. So geofencing and location-based ads are a fantastic way to really drive that reach and engage phase when you're engaging with students. So being able to target local hotspots like libraries, coffee shops, high schools, and community hubs, those are some good foundational places to capture information. And then, for example, drill a little bit deeper if you're working with a partner such as ourselves, or if you're doing things in-house, being able to see what other types of demographic or lifestyle variables we can take it a next step further, to be really intentional to also then craft the message based off of that location. Program-specific campaigns, just as I mentioned on that previous slide, bridging that career to education gap. But I also think if your campus has guided pathways, or if even your programs and certificates are organized in a different type of department or industry, being able to have a message that highlights and builds an audience based off of those interests can be a way to have a broad yet intentional outreach. Because a lot of times programs, for example, in the STEM field, applied technology, engineering, mathematics, there's going to be a lot of foundational interests that those students have. So being able to use those targeting capabilities and show them and highlight several programs that might be of interest really can help move a needle, versus just saying and putting all efforts and dollars into one particular program or just a standard apply now message. And then, of course, building lookalike audiences. Your campus is chock full of rich data of students on your campus. It may be looking at prior application data, registration data, being able to use that and curate a lookalike list to build an audience that is like the students on your campus is really a good way to start building an audience and being more in tune with finding more students that are likely to have an interest in registering on your campus. And then I really wanted to also highlight retargeting ads. There is a lot of effort, specifically even just word of mouth, counselors, someone's got a friend on campus that's really enjoying their college experience with you. There's lots of different effort that is driving eyes and attention to your websites. So even just having a foundational tactic such as retargeting is going to really help move that needle for registration efforts or whatever your goal is to ultimately get them on campus. So being able to then retarget them across different devices and platforms to really have a retargeting message to take that next step. We like doing this across display and also on platforms such as Meta to really capture that high intent interest that's already been on your website. And then last but not least, I really want to also have you think about different ways to use out of home. There is a lot of fantastic ways that we have been able to rethink and reimagine. I think a lot of times when we think traditional advertising and out of home, we're simply thinking of the billboards or even potentially bus wraps, but there's a lot of other ways that you can leverage zip codes and consumer data to have an intentional message delivered across different things, such as gas stations that maybe a lot of your prospective students, based off of different consumer data, they're more likely to be there. You know, different ways to rethink of how to have your message be in front of those students during key times to really help with that unaided memory recall of your college.
Christy,
Saw
we
you go
have
off
a
mute, Katie.
yeah, we have a little bit of engagement in the chat. Doug, not a
Fantastic.
question, but more a comment, which I think is a really great one. He mentioned that they've been using match list targeting of folks who are 2 to 6 years out from having been on campus with no credential with readmission messaging. So really that stop out audience and have seen really good results, which is something I would just reaffirm here. That's something that we do a lot of and always see really strong results. And, you know, to Christy's point, it takes so much less to re-engage someone who you already have had or, you know, have on campus. And then we also do have a question about how would you divide the budget to hit all of these efforts, or would you pick one or two to focus on?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that there's definitely going to be different ways to approach that. One of my first things, if I put my former campus enrollment hat on, is going to be what are the pressures on campus? Is there a strategic plan or a strategic enrollment plan where there are key programs that are really being focused on with board pressures, other pressures to really help drive enrollment? I would say that would be one key area that I would really recommend starting in. Another one would also be where, if you haven't targeted stop outs, I would say that is also a fantastic foundational place to start because to the point in the conversation in the chat, re-engaging somebody who's already very familiar is a good way to divvy up the budget in that space. So I would say that looking at some of those foundational ways of what is going on and taking place on campus is a good way to divvy up that budget. Sometimes we really like to rethink of it as what are the foundational things in place? So I would say also incorporating retargeting, thinking of different ways to use tactics to saturate a specific audience or use a specific message in comparison to, well, I want to do display, but media and paid social is looking really exciting too. And oh, I want to add this and this. You would rather have a really intentional approach in being able to engage in what is a high conversion tactic instead of just having a broad brush approach. And then I'd also say leaning into seeing what programs need support as well. You know, you're always going to have programs that have a waiting list. You're going to have programs that are going to be not needing as heavy of a lift, but kind of finding a middle ground too. Are there programs that are very strong and the students are successful with career outcomes, but maybe there isn't just awareness that this could be a potential career path for them as well? And as we dive into really thinking about different types of mobile first outreach for maximum engagement, I really like to talk about the power of programmatic advertising, especially if your college is in a rural location where broadband internet access is still kind of limited or maybe isn't the most reliable, so that you know a lot of people in your community are leveraging and doing a lot of engagement solely on their mobile devices or tablets. This is really something to think of too as a foundational strategy and tactic, especially because, more than 60% of students access information via mobile devices. So rather than limiting your opportunities, the power of programmatic is it gives you access to the broadest ad network to be able to engage across websites, social media, different streaming platforms, and mobile apps. So being able to meet students exactly where they already are at, and ensuring visibility where students spend their time online. So it's not just putting, to use a saying, eggs all in one basket, but more importantly, it is putting your message across a variety of different ways that it may pop up for students to engage. And then being able to deliver that tailored message based on user interest and behaviors. And something that can also be really insightful, and what I wanted to also share as a screen grab on this screen, is looking at KPIs by device type. This can also give you more insight into how students are viewing your ad, what types of device. And I would like to say being able to retool that then too to see what does your website look like on across those different devices, and are you helping guide students throughout that journey to ultimately register on campus. So this really can help across metro areas, rural communities, like I said, but increasing that engagement to ultimately drive applications and registration on campus.
Christy, we did have one other question before we dive into the SEO
Yeah.
portion. Someone asked, what marketing channels would you utilize if we're thinking about re-engaging audiences? So I think you touched on this a little bit in the previous slide, but just wanted to give you an opportunity to respond there as well.
Yeah, fantastic. So for retargeting efforts, I would definitely say programmatic in the space of display ads. So having those banner display ads go across different apps, different websites that your students are consuming content on. So think of, for example, CNN or the local news channel, those different types of websites, having your ad through programmatic retargeting is a good example. I would also say Meta, especially in the mid to middle-aged adult learners, that some college no credential population, retargeting them on Meta is also a great way to engage with them when they're consuming different types of content. So a lot of times when we're working with college partners, we will use display ad retargeting and ads across Meta as well to help engage and take that next step.
Thanks, Christy. I would echo everything that you said there, and then I would say the other thing is as well when we're thinking about the lists that we have, if we're trying to re-engage a list of stop outs and things like that, there are many channels, the same ones that Christy mentioned, that we can utilize that list on. But I would also encourage everyone here to really think about video as a portion of ways that we can re-engage students as well. In addition to banner ads, video is just such a powerful way that we can re-engage, and the lists that we have, such as stop out lists, are first party audience lists for your institution. So we can leverage those on things like YouTube as well if we have strong content that will really help get them in that mindset of coming back to campus. And then we have another question quickly, Christy, before we move on from Tracy. She asked, would you advertise on digital or static billboards to reach enrollment as well?
I would say there, yes and no. I would probably, if I had a limited budget or if my budget was really intentional of driving a KPI such as enrollment, a billboard isn't going to give that direct ROI attribution. So I would think of, there are other channels that I would be more intentional of before just having a static billboard that is doing that, since that is more of a top of a funnel awareness tactic rather than more of a mid funnel or lower funnel strategy to get a student to register on campus. Awesome. Great questions. Oh, Katie, I saw you go off mute
Oh,
again.
I was just going to say thanks, Christy.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much. All right. So let's dive into local SEO for visibility and engagement. I really like to emphasize this, especially I came from having a very small marketing budget on the campus side. And so I feel that SEO is the unsung hero. A lot of times it is going to be a minimal to no cost effort other than time and attention to really fine tune this. So strong local SEO really does help attract those high intent students actively looking for programs and leaning into their college search. So really in this section, I want to dive into leveraging local SEO and using your own community to really own your community search. And so why local search specifically matters for community colleges, we'll chat a little bit about, and some key SEO strategies such as Google Business Profile and keywords to really leverage as well. And so specifically, SEO isn't just for big institutions. It really is being able to focus on local search terms and optimizing your pages so that you can significantly increase the visibility amongst students actively searching for programs like yours on campus. And more importantly, almost half of, and I've even seen more recent articles saying that it's over half of all Google searches have local intent. So being able to be top of the search and really owning that is a really key strategy to help students consider your college as an option. A lot of times, your college may be a foundational pillar in the community, but students may not necessarily, and even parents, know what goes beyond knowing that that college is in our service area and in our community. Do they know the types of programs you offer? Do they know that there's certificates and different types of micro credentials that you may be offering? Or even if you're wanting to do some of those non-credit bearing, classes that are really just more fulfillment and ways to enjoy and learn a new skill. Being able to really leverage SEO is really a key opportunity there. So being able to be visible in local searches helps prospective students find your college when searching for educational options. It really helps with mobile optimization as well. So many students are searching for colleges on mobile devices. So think of that smaller screen. They're not going to likely scroll multiple scroll links as they're looking for options. So being able to really own your local SEO is going to help you be more top page on those searches. And then driving enrollment. So prospective students, they're going to stop looking and drilling further if they're getting frustrated in that search process. So being able to have that information that's going to be indexed accurately through Google or Bing or other search index platforms, and really being top of mind in that organic search space. So some easy wins for local search visibility is really thinking about using location-based keywords, such as college name near me as a good example, because when a student is searching, Google is more likely to give them local or closer colleges that are nearby when they're searching. So being really location-based in your keywords on your website is a really key way. But also really thinking about leveraging your Google Business Profile. If you haven't already claimed that, definitely do that soon. It's a great way to make sure that information is updated, it is accurate, but also more importantly, the more intentional and correct content you have, the more likely that something like Google or Bing is really going to leverage your data as good information to share with individuals that are actively searching for college or educational opportunities. Some of the other ways to also do that is ensuring that name, address, and phone is consistent across all of your directory level information, so that if somebody is just quickly searching, financial aid office or outreach office, being able to see that information correctly and accurately is going to help your college's name really appear on that local search. And then one of the things that I really like to highlight too, now more than ever in the days of AI and ChatGPT, a lot of students are leaning into that for their college search process. And now platforms such as ChatGPT are also leveraging and pulling in different types of Google reviews when students are searching for different colleges. So really encourage your faculty and your students to write reviews and leverage your brand through that leverage your brand through those reviews and being able to have great information that is then perhaps pulled into an AI-driven student search process. So I also really want to highlight too, as an example, Northampton Community College, they have multiple campuses. And so we partnered to really optimize their Google Business Profile for one of their key campuses and actually used the products feature to really highlight the programs that were on those different or on that campus. And so being able to use the products tab is a really keen way to have a minimal cost or a no cost effort to really be able to show students what programs are offered on your campus, give them a direct and clear pathway back to the website and those program pages, and really be able to help curate the information that students are seeing and showcasing what you have to offer on your campus. And so another great way is by using Google Business Profile to post consistently, posting events as well, so that your college can improve its visibility in local search results and keep students informed. So by regularly updating Google Business Profile with fresh posts can truly help signal to Google that your search rankings are relevant. It is fresh information that is being pulled and curated so that local students that are searching for college can see that. This is a fantastic way to talk about upcoming registration dates, different open houses, different things that you're doing across campus. Being able to have those as post an event through your Google Business Profile is a really cost-effective way to have some key efforts. And then last but not least, really diving into talking about measuring and optimizing campaigns. So truly measurement matters because it's really helping us inform our future strategies, retool our current strategies to really help measure campaign success. But I like to also say it's allowing us to see user behavior in real time too, to see what is resonating with our audiences, what are ways that we can take that information to also help inform different ad creative, different messaging that we may want to run, and really tailor our messaging to help with registration efforts as well. So really when I talk about GA4, I really want to talk about some of the key metrics of seeing how users are engaged. So some of those ways is really thinking of the percentage of users that scroll 90% down the page. When we're thinking of that, I would also then see, do a lot of the students that are consuming the content on our website, maybe they only go 25% down the page. Maybe they're not even making it to half. Think about that smaller percentage and think of, well, what information might be pertinent at the bottom of the page? Is there ways for me to retool and rethink of either moving it above the fold, or how do I tailor that into different types of, for example, a Google Business Profile campaign, different types of other campaigns we might be running to really help get that information that a student may need. Engagement and user rate time on pages compared to other similar pages. Is there pages that really stand out that students are engaging content on at the programmatic level and some that are dropping off? See what is successful on those other pages. Is there a difference in the types of content that is posted? Are we talking about it in a more engaging way? Use that information to retool some of those pages that maybe don't have longer user sessions. And then really track user behavior from acquisition to completing key events. Where are they dropping off unexpectedly throughout the journey? And how do we, try to firm and tighten that up so that we're not having them drop off and having to ultimately try to re-engage them? And so being able to also use information to see what students are searching for on your site. What are those key top of mind topics? I'm sure your one-stop shop on campus or the conversations you're hearing students have with their completion or retention coaches gives you some idea, but being able to also see what students are searching on your website can also help tailor and fine-tune some of your messaging strategies too. So that really leads me into really talking about hidden insights and search queries. So this is a GA4 search report. So being able to see what students are specifically searching for on your website can give you free insight into what they need. So making this information easy for them and helping you improve their experience helps remove those barriers and ultimately helps them be a student registering on your campus. So when you're looking at internal search data, I like to say analyze what student search is on your website. Are they looking for information that's hard to find? Do you see that over and over and over again, students are asking when is the upcoming registration date? I think that could also signal to you of being able to target students that are current, not registered students, students that are stop outs, students that may have submitted an application and quite frankly just don't know what to do next because maybe they're a first generation student. Helping guide and use those internal search data queries to really help form the next steps. And so being able to use something like a search report is a really key way to have that inform your strategy. Another way is to leverage standard reports such as traffic acquisition. This is already something that's pre-populated and built into Google Analytics 4. And so really being able to see what you can uncover from a traffic acquisition report is where do users complete RFI, or where are the users that complete RFI submissions? Where are they coming from? Being able to really see, are there different strategies that are driving more RFI submissions or applications? Click-throughs, what campaigns are driving the most of these submissions and how do we recreate and re-strengthen that process as we're thinking of upcoming planning, and what channels drive the highest engagement rate. I feel that's something that is really important with data that you can find on traffic acquisition reports is helping advocate the media spend dollars that you do have. Knowing that media budget is always heavily scrutinized, sometimes it's hard to track a direct ROI on that. Using data that you can find from a traffic acquisition report can really help and curate that conversation to your board or your VP that you report into, other ways that you are showing that this is how students are engaging with your site. Here are the top driving channels, and here's why I want to invest my marketing budget into these different tactics as well. And so I just also, oh, go ahead, Katie.
You're so good at seeing me come off mute. Thanks, Christy. We had a question, and I think this might have been from a couple of slides ago, but someone asked, "Can you track what search result page someone landed on?" And I'm happy to jump in there as well, Christy. So within
Yeah.
GA4, when we're looking at those search queries, we are able to see where they landed on the site, and then also what pages they went to within the site from there as well. So great question. And then another one, do you have any info on the GA4 update from yesterday regarding how attribution data is categorized? Much of my direct traffic is now showing as unassigned. And that is a great question. That is something that we can dive into a little bit more in the Q&A portion, but we'd be also happy to send over some more information from our analytics team as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I also kind of teed this information up knowing that at, I believe, 3 p.m., we're also having our Making Data-Driven Decisions with GA4 session, where our fantastic colleague Elizabeth Glass who is going to go into the details with GA4, talking more insights in real time too. And so this is a great tee up to that session. So I hope everyone is joining that one as well. Awesome. The other page, and Katie, I think that this also kind of briefly touched a little bit too on what we're talking about too, of being able to see and track an entire user session as well. And so I really also like to highlight the standard report of landing page to see what insights can we uncover with the landing page report. So being able to see what is effectively bringing users onto your site and really tracking that entire user session experience versus just seeing a singular moment in time on a page. So I like to highlight a landing page report over a page path report just for that difference too, to really identify the pages with high traffic and low engagement is something you can see on a landing page report, being able, like I said, to capture that entire user experience across the entire session. So being able to use data that you would find on a landing page report can help you optimize that user experience, which directly impacts them registering taking action on your campus, and helping improve those conversions with data-driven strategies and marketing decisions. So I really just wanted to highlight this as a moment in time to dive in a little bit further, explore, have a continued conversation of looking at how you can incorporate landing page reports into your overall strategy as well. And then last but not least, as I round out my analytics conversation briefly of some of those key metrics and reports to look at, is how do you find out where users are dropping off in the journey? Linear strategies are losing their relevancy. There are many different ways that students are consuming information about you, navigating the process of checks to registration. So being able to see what are those adventures that they are taking to ultimately take, because we can workshop ideas, we can have very keen strategies of how we want them to go from point A to point Z, but knowing that there's going to be a lot of different paths in between that they might take. And so really exploration reports dive a little bit deeper into data, and it's a little bit more customized than standard reports, but being able to leverage funnel exploration reports is a really keen way to see how users are following a journey from the site to discover also specifically where they're dropping off. Is there a key pattern that you're starting to see with user experience that a lot of students are getting to this one moment in time and are dropping off? So being able to see that in real time by looking at your analytics data and being able to retool your strategies, change the content, see how we can get that to increase so they're not dropping off. So, just highlighting some of those examples could be a student going to a program page. From a program page, we want to know who they are, so we ask them to request information. From that, maybe we want to engage with them a little bit further and have them register for an upcoming open house or information session. And then ultimately viewing application information. This is the path that maybe we hope that the student will take, but maybe that's not necessarily the path they're going to take. So being able to use something like a funnel report can really help you see the steps that users are taking throughout that funnel process, and can show the time it takes for users to move between steps and the abandonment rate between steps. Your program page, for example, might have really strong performance. There is a lot of eyes driving to that, perhaps organically or through different paid efforts, but then students are dropping off. You're seeing a significant abandonment rate. For example, the screen grab shows, a very high abandonment rate. So thinking of what on this page isn't helping the student want to submit an RFI. Some of those key questions I would ask myself is the RFI below the fold? Am I asking too many points of data on the RFI form that a student isn't necessarily wanting to warm up and provide me everything at that moment in time? Sometimes we say the best practice is, having 3 points of data. So for example, first name, last name, email address, sometimes a phone number, but make it optional. That is different types of questions you should be asking yourself. Is it hard to fill out the form on a mobile device? Or maybe it's not looking like, they should be taking a next step that's maybe not, it's being lost in transition from what the mobile experience is and what a desktop experience is. So being able to use something like a funnel report can help you start to then have that dialogue on campus internally with your colleagues to see how do we retool and rethink different ways to really firm up our process to get these students to engage with us in those conversion areas. So as we round out some of the key takeaways from today's session, I hope this has sparked some new ideas, some new tips and ways that you really want to refine and optimize your strategies, but kind of bringing it home to think of really leveraging hyper targeting to save money by focusing on engaged audiences. You're giving them that key message, that key moment in time to really drill a next step type of conversation with them. Leveraging local SEO to boost that visibility as students are actively leaning into their search so that they can discover your opportunities across different programs, different upcoming events, different ways to see all the great things that you have to offer to your community. And then really, using analytics to drive smarter marketing tactics, using data insights to refine efforts, really being keen in that way to think of how can I use this user behavior, these insights to help tailor my strategies, advocate for the dollars that are high converting as well. And then really last but not least, even small budgets can have the big impact. So prioritizing some of these cost-effective strategies that I've mentioned today to really be able to help that. And then I've also got some key resources for you to engage with at a later time, but I will also pause there, Katie, to see what other key questions there might be.
Yeah, I'll run through this one quickly. We did get one more question in our Q&A. Someone said, "For many moons, I have been dubious about lookalike audiences as it equates to a little too much allowing the platforms to be in control, a fox in the hen house sort of way, if you will, to the extent that the impressions that we bid on are actually sufficiently lookalike. Do you think AI is changing this at the platform level?" So, Christy, if you wouldn't mind, I have a few thoughts here. So my job specifically here at Carnegie is overseeing our paid digital teams who integrate, or run all of our campaigns. So with this, I think it's a great question. I do think that AI has really changed the game over the past couple of years, but specifically the last 6 to 9 months, we've seen a lot of leaps and bounds improvements here. But my what I would say here is I would really recommend two things. One is running a lookalike campaign as a separate campaign or ad set within whatever platform we're looking at so that we can really A, see the results differently, and B, control the budget allocation that's going to that lookalike audience. But also the reporting aspect that Christy really touched on is so important here. If we have the proper infrastructure of how we're running that lookalike campaign, we're really able to see the results all the way through from those initial impressions to the clicks, and then actually understanding how that lookalike audience is performing in terms of taking further down the funnel actions versus maybe our behavioral targeted campaign or our retargeting campaign. So I would say that it's really, really important to think about that aspect as well. And, testing it out, letting the platform have that control, but also really making sure we see that all the way through to have data driven insights on that audience. And then finally, some of the platforms such as Meta do allow you a percent of which you want to deviate into the lookalike, if you will, from 1% all the way up to 5% and beyond. So I would recommend testing into it at a smaller percentage of lookalike to kind of have a more granular lookalike from the start. We did get one more question. Where can we find the links to the key resources? So those will be shared out when we share the deck via email later this week. Thank you again so much, everybody, for joining us. I really appreciate you spending your time with us today. Christy, thank you so much for sharing all of your insights and expertise with us. Just a couple of reminders before we sign off. We do have an exclusive promotion for everyone attending our workshop here today. We're offering a 20% off deal on a 12-month conversion rate optimization package. So if you scan the QR code on your screen here and complete the form by May 31st, you will be able to claim that offer. Again, all of these sessions, this one as well as the rest of them today, will be recorded and shared along with the slides by the end of the week. So keep your eyes on your inbox. Don't forget to fill out our post-webinar survey. It just takes a couple of minutes and it's so helpful for our team. So we're always looking to improve the way that we deliver these sessions as well as our content. And then whether you've joined just for today or the rest of the day, we so hope that you found today's content helpful and beneficial. And thank you again for joining us. And we look forward to seeing you soon.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Katie, for hosting.
Bye, everybody.